Today on the HopeFilled Financial Podcast, I'm going to tell you about the time that my debit card got compromised by a skimmer on a gas pump. On a related note, our budget tip is going to be about how it's important to have two debit cards. Our question of the day is about artificial intelligence and password hacking. And lastly, for our main topic, we're going to be asking ChatGPT to write us a budget. You're not going to want to miss that. Good morning and welcome to the HopeFilled Financial Podcast. My name is Jay Disberger, your one and only HopeFilled Financial Coach. And today I want to tell you about the one time that my paranoia didn't work when it comes to skimmers. I saw a news story when I was a child about skimmers and how sometimes when you go to the store or the gas pump, you can swipe your card and the skimmer will read the information on the magnetic strip of your card and forward your debit card or credit card information to someone who's going to basically steal your identity and spend your money. Now, while fraud protection is supposed to be able to protect you from an instance like this, it is a real pain in the rear to go through the process of getting a new card and tracking down the expenses that were fraudulently made and proving that they were fraudulently made and getting the money back. So I saw this story and I saw examples of skimmers, and I saw someone on the news say one of the best ways when you go to fill up your car to make sure that you're not going to have your card skimmed is to grab the credit card reader and give it a little jiggle, try to yank it, because a skimmer is typically just loosely placed on top. And while it might look like it's supposed to be there, something's a little off, a lot of pumps anymore that I've seen lately have a little light on them that shows a little lock showing that it's part of the actual hardware. And a skimmer that would spoof that would have to have a little cutout, and that light would look deeply recessed or something. But every time I filled up my car, to my memory, I've grabbed the credit card reader and given it a jiggle and a pull because I didn't want to have to deal with that. There was only one time where I filled up my car and I didn't do that. And it was because I was with my girlfriend at the time, now wife, Amanda, and I pulled up to the pump and she asked if she could fill it up. And I said, yes, but I want to pay for it still. You're not going to be paying for it. So I handed her my card. And she got out and she filled it up. And I didn't discuss necessarily my paranoia with skimmers prior to this moment. This was a learning experience for us in our dating life. So she got out, she filled up the car, got back in, we drove away. Now, it may not have been that there was a skimmer on the pump, but later that day, I got a phone call from the bank saying, hey, you filled up at this gas station. Skimmers were found on this gas station today. So we are proactively canceling your debit card and we're going to send you a replacement. So I didn't end up having any fraudulent charges. And goodness, the bank's security did an excellent job of, hey, we have had transactions in this area. This was reported, and they acted very quickly to protect all of their clients. And for that, I'm grateful. I'm also grateful for the opportunity to discuss with Amanda what it was that threatened the security of the debit card at that moment and how to be checking for the skimmers at the pump. If you've ever had a run-in with a skimmer and you've checked for one and you've actually found it, that would be a really interesting story. I'd love to hear about it in the comments. But for now, it's time for today's budget tip. Today's budget tip is to always make sure that you at least have one redundant debit card. Now, that debit card doesn't necessarily have to be tied to your checking account that the first card is tied to. It could be a redundant checking account as well. Now, that's not to say that you need to be managing two, but let's say you go to the pump and you swipe your card and your card gets canceled because there was a skimmer and there were fraudulent charges and we need to go through the process of resolving the matter. Well, if you only have one card, if you only have one debit card and that's what you spend from, you don't have credit cards, well, how are you going to be spending money with plastic while you're waiting to get that new card? It could take a while. It could take days. It could take weeks to get those situations resolved. So how are you going to go about spending money? Well, you'd have to go and either open up a new account and go through that hassle then, or you could have a second account with a little bit of emergency access money so that if something happens to your primary card, you can jump over to it right away and not experience a major interruption to your life. Another case where this is really handy is if your bank asks you to report when you travel or go on vacation and you forget to do that. When I would leave for my internships, would have my bank cancel my card, typically 2 or 3 fill-ups down the road, and I would swipe the card at the fill-up station and it wouldn't let me fill gas because the card would get declined because there was a fraud alert that was put out on my card just because I was spending money where I typically haven't been historically. And in cases like that, if there's a fraud alert that your bank puts out there and it's a Sunday and you can't resolve it because the bank's closed, well, it's going to be important for you to have immediate access to other monies, either by carrying cash or having that redundant card. Another level of redundancy, sure, might be having a second debit card tied to your primary account. I have had one instance where my debit card got compromised on Amanda and I's joint checking account, and hers did not. So we were able to move all of our major purchases that were automated over to her card if they were on mine, and maintain consistency without missing a beat when it came to our automated payments and online shopping. I hope that helps you as you continue to budget and manage your money frugally. Now it's time to answer a question submitted by you. Today's listener question comes from John. John asks, should I be worried about AI being able to crack the passwords to my accounts? I think there are ways that banks and the like can prevent that from happening. Am I right? John, that was a great question. Thank you so much for sending it in. When you say that a bank or alike probably has provisions to prevent a AI from hacking your password, you're probably talking about that they limit how many times you can guess a password before they lock your account up. The problem is twofold from what I know of cybersecurity. One is sometimes a website for a bank or similar will only block the number of password tries based off of some criteria, like they may recognize that a particular instance of a browser is open and they're judging how many times the password is tested on that particular browser session. In that case, if you opened up another browser, you could try again. And if you have an AI that's continually rotating through browser IDs, well, it could try the password over and over and over again. Same thing if it's using your IP address in order to figure out who you are and that you're trying to get through the account. The reason why they have it to some sort of specific criterion is a hacker could take an AI and attack a particular bank and say, I want you to try passwords for every known user account or every possible combination of user accounts with so many letters in the user account name. And they could lock hundreds and hundreds of people out of their account with one very simple attack that takes just seconds, relatively speaking. So in order to prevent their system from being shut down like that and having customer service have to deal with dozens and dozens and dozens of calls every minute trying to reset passwords or unlock online banking, they're going to have some other criterion in place. Now, that's not to say everyone does that. It might be finite, no matter how many times the password is tried anywhere and it locks it down. Well, in that case, that could help prevent an AI hacking your password, but there's still one other way around that. Oftentimes when there's a major security vulnerability when it comes to passwords, it's because a hacker has gone in and gotten the backlog, the back of house list of all the passwords. Now, the passwords are encrypted. They're hashed. They're presented in a way that you couldn't just type it in as is presented. It needs to be translated back into the original password or the correct password. Now, if you have all of the hash data, you have the user accounts there, well, you can have an AI go through and run a program where it's trying to correctly match up potential passwords with the hash data in order to crack the hashing encryption and the like. So if that's the case that's going on, you have this AI attacking stuff in a sandbox separate from the account. Well, it can figure out everybody's passwords, then just go in and log in and get the passwords on the first try later. So yeah, AI hacking a password is a concern. AI does a much better job than other hacking programs or a hacker straight up trying to guess your password on its own. And it's able to operate much, much faster. For the sake of this conversation, I've looked up an article that talks about artificial intelligence hacking passwords. This is an article from 9to5Mac. It's called Terrifying Study Shows How Fast AI Can Crack Your Password. Here's How to Protect Yourself. So I'm not going to go through this article like I would if it were a main topic, but it's definitely a good read if you want to learn a little bit more about this topic and improve your cybersecurity understanding so that you can protect yourself from AI. The big thing that I want to show you if you are watching on YouTube or Rumble is this table down here, and I'll talk through it for those who are just listening on audio. But there was a study that was done with an AI password cracker called PassGen, and it ran through a list of 15 million plus known passwords, and it tried to crack each one of them. And as a result of the study, they were able to figure out how long it would take the AI to crack a password given the number of characters and the composition of those characters. So if you only use numbers for your password, it's able to crack your password if you have 11 characters or fewer. If you have 12 characters, it takes 25 seconds. If you have 14 characters, it takes a little more than half an hour. If you have 15 characters, it takes 5 hours. And if you go all the way up to 18 characters and it's only numbers that you're using, it will still be able to hack your password in 10 months. So that's a relatively long password, but there are other ways other than just making it longer that you can improve your password strength. The next one was lowercase letters only. In this case, as opposed to 11 characters where it instantly gets through the password, it's limited to 7 because you have more options with letters than you do numbers. So if you have 7 characters and all lowercase letters, you're very vulnerable to an AI attack. The point where you become well protected is 14 characters and above for only lowercase letters. At 14 characters, it takes 49 years to get your password right. And if you use 15 characters, all lowercase, it takes 890 years for the AI to get your password. If you use a mix of uppercase and lowercase letters, 6 characters and fewer, you get instantly hacked. And the length that I see that looks most applicable to being properly protected is 12 characters. So if at 12 characters with upper and lowercase letters, it takes 289 years for an AI to hack your password. For numbers, uppercase and lowercase letters all mixed together, 6 characters or fewer, still instantly hacked. If you have 8 characters, it's 48 minutes to get hacked. And once you get up to 12 characters, it takes 2,000 years to hack your password. 11 characters was 38 years, so 11 probably enough to protect you there. Now, as you know, a lot of places mandate that you use uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and a special symbol in order to improve the quality of your password. So if you follow that best practice for making a password, how many characters do you need to have a password that, at this point, is AI proof? Well, according to this particular study, at 10 characters, it takes 5 years to get through your password if you use a mix of everything. And if you use 11 characters, it takes 356 years. 12 characters, you're at 30,000 years. And anything above that is just ridiculous, at least for where AI technology is today. So to answer your question, John, yes, AI hacking passwords is a thing that we should be concerned about, especially as the quality of AI is improving by leaps and bounds. Just in the last year, we've seen AI go from, ooh, this is kind of cool, to mainstream. And where we are now, if you have a properly balanced password that uses numbers, lowercase, uppercase, and special symbols, you only need 11 characters to make it AI proof. So if you do that with all your passwords, you probably do not need to be worried about it being hacked by AI. And if you wanted to future-proof it, you could simply add a character or two beyond the 11 characters. But once you go past that, you're basically getting beyond the point of diminishing returns and making password management more difficult on yourself. While we're discussing AI, let's move on to today's main topic and ask ChatGPT to write us a budget. So for today's main topic, we're going to be asking ChatGPT, a language AI, to write us a budget. I want to see if it's going to be able to help me if I come in and say, I don't know anything about budgeting. Can you help me make a budget? The only assumptions I'm going to have going into this is that my monthly income is $4,000 as a hypothetical, and my mortgage payment is $1,200 a month. I'm going to leave almost the rest of the information up to the chat and see how it guides me and see if it's able to replace what I would do in helping a client write a budget for the first time. Now, if you're listening to the audio, I'll read through what ChatGPT says, but if you watch on YouTube or Rumble, I'm going to also have the chat available up on the screen so that we can watch how the AI works together. So first we're going to say, can you help me learn how to budget. Wow, it's fast. It's still writing, but I'm going to start reading. Of course, I'd be happy to help you learn how to budget. Budgeting is a valuable skill that can help you manage your finances effectively and achieve your financial goals. Here are some steps to help get started. So it's given us a total of 8 steps. Step 1 is set your financial goals, determine what you want to achieve with your budget. It could be saving for a specific purchase, paying off debt, building an emergency fund, or planning for retirement. Track your income expenses. Start by gathering information about your income and expenses. Make a list of income sources such as salary, freelance work, and retail income, and then track your expenses for a few months to get a clear picture of where your money is going. Categorize your expenses into broad categories like housing, transportation, groceries, entertainment, and so on. All right, I like how the chat has said that you should track your expenses and figure out where your money's going to inspire you for some of the categories. But I want to start writing a budget today, so we're going to ignore the hypothetical idea of tracking things in order to inform us. I want to see what the chat recommends straight up. Step 3 it recommends is create a budget. Well, that's what we're here to do. Based on your income and expenses, create a budget that aligns with your financial goals. Allocate a specific amount of money to each category and expense, and ensure that your income exceeds your expenses. Be realistic and flexible while setting the amounts. So it almost got the idea of a zero-based budget here. It simply says that your income needs to exceed the sum of all your expenses. So not necessarily be equal to it, but exceed it. Now, it is talking about expenses here, and a zero-based budget takes your spending, saving, and giving in order to get you to zero. So we'll see if it gets there later on. I might tease it a little bit about zero-based budgeting versus traditional budgeting. Prioritize your spending. Identify your essential expenses, rent/mortgage, utilities, groceries, etc., and prioritize them in your budget. Then allocate funds in your savings and debt payments. Finally, allocate amounts for discretionary spending in non-essential items and entertainment. Okay? I like that the AI put paying off your debt ahead of discretionary spending for non-essential items. That's interesting. Step 5, monitor and adjust. Keep track of your spending regularly and compare it to your budget. Use tools like spreadsheets or budgeting apps to make it easier. This will help you identify areas where you may be overspending or areas where you can save more. Adjust your budget as necessary to stay on track with your financial goals. That's good advice. The budget isn't a dead document after you write it for the month. It's a living document that helps inform your decisions and can change as your situation through the month changes too. Step 6, build an emergency fund. As you budget, aim to set aside a portion of your income for an emergency fund. This fund will provide a financial safety net for unexpected expenses or income disruptions. Over time, aim to save 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in your emergency fund. That is stellar advice. Well done, chat. There are 2 more steps. Step 7, reduce unnecessary expenses. Look for ways to cut back on non-essential expenses. It could involve negotiating bills, cooking at home instead of eating out, or finding affordable alternatives for your entertainment needs. Small adjustments can add up over time and free up money for saving or other important financial goals. Well, this is good budgeting advice in general. It's not helping me learn how to budget at the moment. This is behavior advice, which is good. It's good, but we might be getting a little bit off topic for where we want to go today. Lastly, pay off debt. If you have debts, prioritize paying them off. Consider strategies like the debt avalanche or debt snowball method to tackle your debts effectively. Paying off high-interest debts first or starting with smaller debts for quick wins can help you stay motivated. Well, that's really an interesting thing that it brings up the avalanche and the snowball. It gives you objective presentations of both, but it doesn't really describe what they are. I'm sure we could ask about it. I'd like to dig into which one's better. I don't think the chat would take a side, but that would be interesting to ask it. Remember, budgeting is a continuous process and it may take some time to find the right balance. Be patient and adaptable and don't hesitate to make adjustments as needed. By practicing consistent budgeting habits, you'll gain more control over your finances and work toward achieving your financial objectives. What a wonderful word of hope to end the steps there. It might be feeling a little overwhelming, but it gives you a lot of reassurance that it's a continuing process and you need to be patient as you adapt and build your budgeting habit. That's brilliant. So here's what I want to do now. I want to ask it, can you help me get started writing my budget here? Certainly, let's get started on creating your budget. To begin, we'll break it down into several categories. Please provide the following information. Oh, it's asking for stuff. This is great. So first it wants income, then it wants essential expenses, then it wants discretionary expenses, then it wants saving and investments, then it wants debt repayments. Okay, this is great. So we're going to do our best now to give it what it wants and do so politely. So I'm just going to type in 1. Income total is $4,000 per month. And then we're going to say 2. Essential expenses, list your necessary expenses, rent, mortgage, payment, utilities, transportation. So we're going to say mortgage, $1,200 per month. And I didn't come up with a hypothetical for the others, but we'll just make some stuff up as we go here. So I accidentally hit enter there, and I only gave it the information that I'd predetermined I would give it, which is the income and then the mortgage expense. So it's interesting. Now it's asking me for the rest of the stuff. It says, thank you for providing the information. Let's continue your budget. I think I didn't give it enough of the essential expenses because it's prompting me to provide discretionary next. It only thinks that the mortgage is $1,200 a month. So I'm going to say I have other essential expenses, but I do not know how much they are. Can you help me estimate them? Certainly, I can help estimate essential expenses. While it's ideal to have specific amounts for each expense, we can provide rough estimates for now. Here are some common expenses. Utilities includes electricity, water, internet, bills, and the like. Rough estimate would be around $200 to $300 a month, but it can vary based on factors such as the size of your home and location. Groceries. The amount spent on groceries can vary depending on dietary needs, family size, and location. As a rough estimate, a monthly budget is $300 to $500. That is really solid. For an individual, a way that I like to estimate grocery budgets is about $200 per person in the family, $200 to $250 per person, and that's per adult person. Kids, depending on their age, are going to be much less or comparable to an adult, or even more so if you have a growing teenager. So then 3, transportation. Consider your commuting costs, whether it's fuel for your vehicle or public transportation. This can vary widely based on factors like distance, travel, vehicle efficiency, fare rates, blah, blah, blah. Estimate somewhere between $100 and $300 for transportation. That's fair. We're going to say for this example, we work from home. So we'll go on the low end for transportation. Insurance premiums that you need to pay, such as health insurance, car insurance, renter's insurance. This will vary depending on the type of coverage you have. Estimate $100 to $300 per month could be a good starting point. I think that might be a little low for most situations, so we'll throw in a number that's a little higher. Health-related expenses. Account for any health-related expenses. I'm just going to say that there aren't any for this particular example. Again, this is a hypothetical. Remember, these are rough estimates, and your actual expenses may vary. It's important to track your expenses over time to get a more precise understanding of your essential expenses. This will help you adjust your budget accordingly. So just to get started, we're going to say utilities should equal, let's just go right in the middle of the range that it gave us, $250. Groceries. Let's assume that I'm just feeding myself, so we're going to go to $350 to be on the high range. I am just starting with this budgeting thing. Transportation. we're going to say $100. Then for insurance, let's go $500. Health equals 0. Thank you for providing the estimated amounts for your essential expenses. Let's incorporate them into your budget. Look, it's doing a great job recapping. So it remembered the income, and even though I didn't tell it that the other expenses were per month, it gave them per month. Now let's move on to discretionary spending and after creating a beautiful summary. So discretionary expenses, list any non-essential expenses and their monthly amounts. For example, dining out, entertainment, subscriptions, shopping. So we're going to say dining out. Let's just make it equal to the grocery budget for now as well. Just double the amount that we're spending on food. That puts us at $700 for groceries and eating out total. Entertainment. Let's do $100. For subscriptions, we're going to say $120. And I'm just throwing random numbers out here that feel like they're possible. General shopping, let's do $300. Let's see what it says if I give it that. It recognized everything I gave it as being strictly discretionary. It did ask for me to give savings stuff as well as debt repayments. And it knew to categorize what I threw out at it under discretionary without me actually classifying it there. It's very intelligent. So the saving and investing, let's see how much we want to do savings. Let's just say that saving is equal to $500 a month and retirement investing $800 per month. Great, let's incorporate these into the budget. So now it's giving a summary of where we are with the income, essential expenses, discretionary expenses, saving and investments. Now let's add debt repayments. If you have any outstanding debts, please recall them. Well, we've covered a mortgage already, but it's keeping that separate, something I approve of. Credit cards, student loans, car loans, monthly minimum payments. I'm going to just say I have no debts other than my mortgage in order to make sure this example doesn't go on too long. That's great to hear. Since you don't have any additional debts, we can proceed by finalizing your budget. Here's the updated version. So it's resummarized the whole budget, and it's done a pretty darn good job of it too. So with this budget, you've allocated your income to cover your essential expenses, discretionary expenses, saving and retirement, investing. It's important to track your actual spending against this budget and make adjustments as needed to ensure you stay on track. Remember, budgeting is a dynamic process, and you can make changes based on your evolving needs and goals. Regularly review your budget and make adjustments to reflect any change in your income. Good luck with your budgeting journey. So it's sounding like we're done, but it hasn't told me whether or not my expenses have exceeded my income. I want to ask it that. Did my expenses exceed my income? Let's see what it says. I apologize for the oversight. Let's calculate your total expenses and compare them to your income. Nice. So total expenses are more than the income by $170 after it runs the numbers. It appears your total expenses exceed your monthly income. To ensure your expenses align with your income, we may need to make adjustments to your budget. Here are a few options to consider. Reduce discretionary expenses. Look for areas where you can cut back on your discretionary spending, such as dining out, entertainment subscriptions, or shopping. This can help free up some funds to align your expenses with your income. Reevaluate your saving and retirement contributions. While it's essential to prioritize saving and retirement, you may need to temporarily reduce the amount to these categories until your income increases or you make adjustments in other areas. Review essential expenses. Take a look at your essential expenses and see if there are opportunities for lower costs. For example, you can explore ways to reduce utility bills or insurance premiums. By making some adjustments and prioritizing your spending, you can align your expenses with your income and ensure balanced budget. Remember to regularly review and update your budget as your financial situation evolves. So there are two things that I'm thinking of right now. One is it didn't talk anything about giving. The chat didn't ask me if I had any donations that I wanted to make. It might classify those as something that belong in discretionary, but it didn't list giving as an example. And I think giving is something that's very important for us to consider when we are budgeting. The other thing here is it gave a good list of recommendations. Now, reevaluating your saving when you're putting as much into saving as we did here should definitely come after the idea of reducing discretionary expenses, especially with the amount that we are saving here. I'm actually curious to see if it will be able to calculate a saving rate after we correct the budget. And I'm just going to go ahead now and ask it to correct the budget by reducing the eating out. Can you reduce the eating out in order to balance the budget? Certainly, let's adjust the dining out expense to help balance your budget. Since the total expense currently exceeds your income, we can reduce dining out to bring your expense line within your income. Okay, it did something interesting here. Let's lower dining out from $350 to $200 a month. This adjustment will free up $150 in your budget. Now let's recall, prior it said we were $170 over budget, so it didn't take enough out to get us back in line. Then it gives us a new summary of the budget. Let's review. $4,000 for income, good. Mortgage is good. Utilities are good. Groceries are $350. Transportation is $100. Insurance is $500. That's good. Discretionary, $200 per month for dining out, which is what we told it to do. Entertainment is $100. Subscriptions are $120, and shopping is $300. Saving and investing, $500. Retirement, $800. Now let's recalculate your expenses. So now it's gone through and added it up, but somehow our sum total is more for expenses than it was before. And I don't know how that happened. It increased by what, $50? Yeah, it increased the total expenses by $50. We cut some expense out. Why did my total expenses go up by $50? We'll see if we can figure that out. So now it's doing the re-summary of the math. No, it's doing the re-summary of the budget, and it's getting all the numbers right from what I can tell. Now it's listing all the expenses and adding them up. Oh, and now the expenses are even more than it was before. Now, we've gone from $4,170 to $4,220 to now $4,420. After recalculating your total expenses, it's higher. It's $4,420. I apologize for the oversight from the previous expense calculation. So now it's much higher. We're going to ask it, please reduce shopping and eating out proportionally in order to balance the budget. I think if we ask it to do that, we should be able to get it to zero-based budget. We'll see what it does. Certainly, let's adjust both. So it's going to reduce both by 20% in order to bring things in line. So now the new shopping is a total of $240, which I think is reduced by 20%. So that's good. So they cut $60 out of shopping, and they cut a few more dollars out of dining out. It looks like from before they cut out $40. So altogether they cut out $100. And somehow now the total expenses are $4,220. So we're still closer this time, but we're not balanced yet. We're going to say, please repeat this with a reduction to saving and insurance. Certainly, let's adjust the savings and insurance proportionally. They're going to drop those by 15%. So now insurance is going to be $425 and saving is going to be $425. So it was able to cut $150 total, and we should be very close. But the total expenses listed did not change from what it listed. That's really interesting. I don't know what happened there. It didn't change the total even though it changed the line items. Can you double check your math as the total expenses did not change? So now it's going to recalculate the budget. It's taking a little bit more time to think this through. What we're discovering here is, well, the chat was able to provide a lot of wisdom when it comes to how to make a good budget. It didn't walk us through everything in a way that, real quick, it just finished summing the expenses, and now we're like $800 under budget. So I am not sure what happened there. Give me a moment. I'm going to double check the AI's math and see where the sum actually is. Okay, I redid the math for the AI, and it's off by $900 right now. So I added up all of the expenses that they have listed on screen. It did a good job keeping track of where we were with the budget. It's just not adding correctly. For as smart as this thing is, it's not doing proper addition. Our total is actually $4,085. So I'm going to ask it again to redo the math and see if we get any closer. Please check your math again. I do not think the sum of these expenses is correct with all of our updates. Let's see what it says. I apologize for the repeated errors in calculations. Let's recalculate the budget. Considering all adjustments we've made, I appreciate your patience. So it's re-summarized the budget, and it's also kept track of what we reduced and where those percentages were reduced. Now it's much closer. It's off by $200. It says $3,985. And the math that I added up said $4,085. So I'm going to ask it one more time. I think you are still off by a couple hundred. Please try one more time. Thank you. Got to be polite for the artificial intelligence. I want them to favor me when Skynet comes to power. Okay, so it's going through the budget one more time. Now it's listing all the expenses, and from what I remember, it looks okay. Although insurance has now dropped much more than the $400 some that it listed earlier, so I'm not sure when those plummeted. Dining out has now been reduced only to $128. Entertainment is $100. Subscriptions are $120. Shopping is $192. Savings was $500 and is now only $289, and retirement is $800. So somewhere along the lines, every time we're asking it to do this, I think it might actually be changing some of those numbers a little bit more. I mean, shopping was $240. Before that, it was $240. So this time when it summarized, it messed up the budget that it was keeping track of. It messed it up pretty well. It's even inconsistent within the one response. Earlier, it says shopping is $240, and then when it sums it up, it makes it $289. Additionally, savings was $340, and now it lists savings as $289. I'm going to just, for the sake of my curiosity, ask it why it's inconsistent. Why do these categories no longer match up between the budget summary and the total expenses calculation? We'll see what it says. I apologize once again for the inconsistencies in the budget summary and the total expenses. Let's rectify the issue. I apologize, and I appreciate your patience. So it's going through the numbers again. Savings is now up to $340. Shopping is $192 now. And our total expenses are now $3,290.25. I think we have hit the point of insanity. So I think what we've learned today is the chat can kind of help you understand budgeting to get started, but it's not able to do math. It's not able to keep everything straight as you go through. And if you ask it to help you make adjustments or make recommendations, it can only do so with explicit direction. It can't look at your situation and help you break apart where you might be able to make room or how you can make changes practically. It wants to make sure that you are taking the starting point, however, and putting it into practice in a way where you're going to adjust it and tweak it and make it into something that's realistic. So in practice, I don't think I am in danger of being replaced by artificial intelligence when it comes to helping someone make a budget. And I also think that ChatGPT needs an awful lot of work when it comes to its ability to reconcile numbers. And while we didn't end up with a proper budget that was balanced, one that was consistent, nor a zero-based budget, let alone a recommendation for a zero-based budget, we had fun. And we got to explore ChatGPT in a fun way, and we got to recognize its strengths and where there's definitely some work that it needs to do. I might ask it again for some budgeting help later so it can keep learning and explore a little bit. If I find something interesting, I'll be sure to share it with you on the podcast. But until next week, until next Tuesday, budget bravely and enjoy your hope-filled financial future.